Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on travel revival and what it means for youth employment. My name is Nora Seoud, and I'm the CEO of Education for Employment Egypt. I'll be both your host and the moderator of this session. This is the fifth event in EFE's Acceleration Series, which focuses on charging forward to achieve even greater impact. I would like to thank you all for attending. A special thank you to our many supporters and partners who have joined us today. For those of you who are new to EFE, let me first briefly tell you who we are and what we do. Education for Employment is a network of non-for-profit independent affiliates across the MENA region, Europe, and the North America. Our vision is a generation of young people who can reshape their future through the hope and dignity of employment. And our mission is to empower these young people in the Middle East and North Africa to secure such employment. We equip them with demand-driven skills and real job opportunities. How we do it is very simple. We are market-driven, and this is what makes us very unique. We start from the employer's end, tailor our curricula, as we always call ourselves tailors of curricula, implement our programs to train youth, and then we place them into jobs. We mainly operate in 7 countries in the MENA region, namely Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Palestine, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, and Yemen. We also have the support of global hubs in New York, Washington, D.C., Madrid, and Dubai. Together as independent, yet we are very strongly connected affiliates, we have connected over 128,000 of youth to the world of work across our core training tracks. And EFE-Egypt alone has connected close to 10,000 youth to the world of work. If you really want to learn more about EFE, you can just check out our website, efe.org. In today's sessions, which I'm really very excited about, I am honored to have a panel of very special guests who represent key stakeholders in employment in tourism. My first guest is Mr. Tarek Zaki. Tarek is the General Manager of Hilton Cairo Zamalek Residences. Tarek joins us today as an expert in the hospitality careers, both in Egypt and internationally. We also have Ms. Jane Rexworthy, the Executive Director of People's First International. Jane is an international expert in skills policy, solutions, and services. She has been working with EFE on several projects. We are very lucky that one of these projects are in Cairo. Last but not least, we have Laila Mohamed. Laila is a graduate of Cairo University and our EFE-Egypt graduate as well. She works as an accountant for a travel agency. She will be sharing her thoughts from a youth perspective. To get into today's topic, I'll be sharing some very few slides, and I promise you I will not take long. So I just thought of putting some smile on your faces and start with having a passport, camera, and some euros, because we really do miss traveling around the world. So this is how this is how we're all missing the airplanes now. So as many of you know, the world has celebrated World Tourism Day earlier this week. And the theme, this year's theme was Tourism for Inclusive Growth. The UN World Tourism Organization chose this theme to recognize the economic and social benefits derived from tourism for everyone. Nowadays, when we mention tourism, we think of the devastation that hit the sector by COVID-19. Tourism has been an integral part of life and economy in modern society, especially in the Middle East. Tourism can take many shapes and forms. People might travel for business, for health and wellness, for religious or cultural reasons, and definitely for shopping as well, along as a lot of eating that might come along as well. So with a wide array of purpose and activities, tourism impacts numerous economic and business sectors. Naturally, this wide impact has led tourism to be one of the key contributors to the global economy. In 2019, tourism contributed 10.4% to the global economy. This figure dropped to 5.5% in 2020 due to the COVID-19 restrictions, not to mention the hundreds of millions of jobs that were lost. The MENA region is, of course, no exception. Taking Egypt as an example, between 2019 and 2020, mainly pre-COVID and post-COVID-19, as you can see from the slide. Just to name a few indicators, tourism contribution to the GDP dropped by 5%. The number of employment opportunities dropped by more than 8,000 jobs. Quite a scary number, honestly. And the total spending from the international and domestic visitors dropped by over 200 billion Egyptian pounds. Again, this is only not in Egypt. The stats and figures are similar around the MENA region and the world. But finally, we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The world is hopefully recovering slowly but surely. However, nobody really knows what exactly to expect. As lifestyles and work habits have changed and things will never be the same again, this is one thing that we know, that there is no way of going back. This is why this session is really very important to EFE's work. We have been waiting for this session for quite a long time. We have been training youth in hospitality sectors for years till now. Since inception, all EFE affiliates have run over 100 classes in the tourism, hospitality, and related sectors, graduating nearly over 2,000 youth in the sector. The numbers have dropped during COVID-19, but we are increasing the numbers again as the world starts to open up. Also, we manage two very special projects in this sector, one project in Jordan and one in Egypt. In Jordan, we have EFE Jordan manages Abdali Mall Recruitment and Training Center in partnership with Abdali Mall in Amman. Also in EFE-Egypt, we manage the Al-Maza Recruitment and Training Center, a partnership with City Center Al-Maza. It's basically the same model, but we have an M that differs in both names. So as we go back to our regular training numbers, we study the emerging trends and explore the new skills that are now required. We are working with both employers and youth to see if they are ready and what they are thinking. As part of these efforts comes today's session. I will touch upon these issues and I will ask my esteemed guests to tell me what their thoughts are. So I will stop sharing here and I will move to my first guest, and I will start with you, Laila. So our very own graduate, Laila Mohamed. Laila, tell us more about yourself. What did you study and what is your current job title?
Okay, hello Nora. Thank you so much for having me in this webinar. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm 24 years old. I studied accounting in Cairo University, joined Georgia program, and I'm currently working as a junior accountant at a travel agency.
Laila, it's really a pleasure to have you. And as I always say, it's always best to hear it from youth. We can speak on and on and on, but when youth speak, they say it in the best way ever. So would you like to tell the audience about your experience with EFE-Egypt and how it has helped you find a job?
Of course. So firstly, I found the training on LinkedIn. There was a post shared by EFE-Egypt that mentioned the job placement training program, which provides the students with skills that gives them more chances to be hired. Upon seeing the link, I got super excited and applied for the program. A week later, I received a call from EFE-Egypt to attend an information session where I got introduced to the program and learning outcomes I'd have as a graduate. And honestly, it was a promise they have fantastically fulfilled. The program was 1 month long, 5 days a week. Within the program, we got hands-on training, and to my advantage, the entire training was online due to COVID. Throughout the online training, I have learned everything about business skills, including interview skills, CV writing, presentations, even the tonality of dealing with the recruiters was included, which made me amazed. They have covered everything. I have also studied business English, along with Microsoft skills, where I got to try executing every step and got consistent feedback from my mentor. This is a skill that comes in handy to this day. At first, seeing the opportunity is online, I thought it would be a course like any other, where you just go in, attend boring sessions online, then get a certificate and call it a day. But to my surprise, the experience was quite pleasant. I was constantly engaged in the session. The coordinators kept up with me and made sure I received the training I have enrolled for. I didn't only get a certificate, but I got skills that last for life. So for the CV, reframing is a skill I have earned as an EFE-Egypt graduate, and it has helped me represent my previous work experience in a professional way. So instead of being ghosted by recruiters, I got actual callbacks. When it got to the interviews, because of the training I attended, I actually knew exactly what I was getting into and how to answer questions. I have successfully landed a job 3 months later. The knowledge I have gained still helps me during my day-to-day interactions, whether with Microsoft programs or with my colleagues. So my journey with EFE-Egypt wasn't concluded by my landing job. They have kept up with me as an alumnus to tell me about suitable opportunities for further personal and career development. EFE-Egypt has introduced me to an international mentorship program, which I have attended and highly benefited from. Happily, I'm still in contact with my mentor till this day.
Thank you, Laila. What a lovely story, especially that you are one of our graduates that took the course online. Usually we were very, very scared that we won't have the same value that we used to have offline when we go online. But thank you for confirming that it was that successful for you.
That's my pleasure.
My next question is for you, Tarek. Tarek, your hotel hired EFE graduates before, I think a couple of female graduates. I'm sure that the audience would be interested to hear about them. But first, could you tell us how the COVID-19 pandemic affected hotels and tourism, especially in the area of hiring and recruitment?
Hello, Nora. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be among the panelists on today's webinar. Actually, as we've experienced all since the eruption of the pandemic, this has basically impacted the global economy. Governments, businesses, and financial markets were also seriously affected. The entire economy and economic sector across the world was really hit hard, and there were mass disruptions associated with the uncertainty from the spread of this coronavirus globally. Accordingly, unemployment rates increased in many industries, among which our industry, the hotel travel industry, due to the suspension or closure of businesses due to lockdowns, social distancing measures being taken. Even for those, employers and employees that remained in business, they had to accept salary cuts with shorter working hours, mandatory unpaid leaves in different sectors of our industry, be it airlines, hotels, food services, etc. For us in the hotel sector, actually occupancies, they've dropped drastically in 2020. However, business levels started since then to show slow but steady recovery month on month, which varied from one country to the other globally. Given obviously the challenges associated with COVID-19 pandemic, many entities in our hotel sector are still recovering from its ripple effect and are struggling with cash flow shortages, outstanding debts, etc. Reflecting on what I've just mentioned, young people, obviously, they've been affected or impacted among the rest with the drop in employment rates, with people going on unpaid leave, etc., etc. And nowadays, we can say that, yes, young people are somehow reluctant to join the travel and lodging industry, as it's somehow sensitive to global or local disruptions, as in our case of our discussion today, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. Reflecting on this or adding to this, I would like to just focus on one thing, that our industry over the years has really proven to be somehow resilient to natural and man-made disasters. And there are so many examples across the world. Hotels, they were swift, and in my company, obviously, reacted very fast to the spread of the pandemic by addressing the need for maximizing the use of technology and obviously increasing the measures when it comes to hygiene and sanitation. So those two things managed to pull things through and keep us afloat during this period. When it comes to the impact of hiring and recruitment, obviously in Q1 2020, there was a sort of an initial stop of hiring as soon as the pandemic spread. Some entities were really lucky to retain the team members. Others had to partially or fully close and release some or many of their team members. There was also negative impact on team members' income, given that there are packages, obviously, particularly in hotels, they include service charge and bonuses, which were not given or not there any longer. As business levels started to regain momentum slowly but surely at different paces, as I mentioned, across the world, hiring and recruitment in the tourism and lodging industry started to commence, and we've started seeing the number of hiring increasing once again. This is just an overview from my perspective on the pandemic and its impact on our industry, as well as hiring and recruitment. At the beginning of your question, you've mentioned that we've had two young ladies from EFE. Absolutely, we had the pleasure of having them hired in 2019, Mariam and Menna. At that time, we were actually looking into hiring female technicians within our maintenance team, which is something unusual for us in this property and in Egypt currently, and I believe in some or in many parts of the world as well. So we wanted this to happen, and EFE was the right support in that respect. They've worked with us for nearly a year and a half, where we've seen them learning different techniques in a number of workshops within our maintenance department. They were part of our Can Fix, which means that they would go into a room or a unit to do a quick fix in a number of domains, which they've managed to pull very well. Unfortunately, due to COVID and due to the drop in salaries and all that, sadly they had to leave. But we are looking forward to trying to have them back with us, or even hire more ladies in that post.
Thank you very much, Tarek. This is really very informative, especially coming from someone who is right at the heart of events. So this raises a questions for you, Jane. Jane, you are an expert on youth skills and training. So what are your thoughts on planning hope in the heart of young people in economies with challenges?
Well, thank you, Nora, and hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me today to be on this panel with my esteemed colleagues. So I think it's a really interesting topic and really appropriate timing as the world opens back up in the travel industry post or part the way through COVID. So I wanted to just share some statistics with you. So just a couple of slides, just to kind of share some of the challenges that the industry is facing, but to kind of set the scene, I wanted to just share some of the thoughts that the industry is already having to cope with, in as much as the customers are looking for something different. They want to feel safe. They want an environment that allows them to explore countries in a slightly different way. They don't want the crowd scenarios that they were facing before. And so we're asking our industry not only to think about the youth it needs to recruit, but also what its offer is for the future. And so it's really building back better, and sustainability, the green agenda, digitalization are really key aspects of that. The reality is we're in a crisis globally. As Tarek's just said, the challenge is so many people were let go in the last 18 months from the industry that they have now moved on into other jobs and occupations. And that is a real challenge for the industry. And so what's happened from that is, in opening back, and a survey in the UK very recently in the summer this year showed that 35% of businesses are having to employ people with no skills. There's a real opportunity for organisations like Education for Employment in Egypt and around the world to really provide some of these skills interventions to get people work ready. And what we're saying at the moment is that nearly 80% of businesses do not have the full complement of staff. So again, another huge challenge to really contend with. And then when we start thinking about what are those skills that are needed just for entry point, resilience has already been mentioned, and that's absolutely critical. We need people that can be really resilient to change, to adapt to the new skills that are required, and to keep learning whilst in the workplace. Communication skills, building those digital skills. We've all seen our restaurant menus change to QR codes. We've had to train our customers as well how to use digital technology, and that can only be done if we've got staff members, employees in the industry that can undertake that. That's an advantage for youth, because youth come with having been born into the digital age, and so actually they're advanced in that particular field. Customer service is also critical at this time, making our customers feel really safe. And emotional intelligence, being able to really problem solve and think about what the customer's requiring, especially as customers tentatively come back to our doors. And then finally, it's really thinking about leadership. Our managers and our supervisors have to work differently. And so that's something for us to really consider as we start hiring back better and encouraging young people to consider the travel industry as a place to be and to be able to grow their careers. So those are some of the kind of key insights I just wanted to share with you at this point, Nora, and I'll come back with some more facts in a moment.
Thank you, Jane. I didn't want to interrupt you twice, but your slides all of a sudden were working, and it's such a shame because they're really very good. And honestly, your insights need a separate session of their own to cover in depth. They're very interesting. Tarek, hearing Jane's insights, how much of this do you think is immediate right away? And with all of these challenges, is tourism still an attractive sector for employment?
Actually, Jane and her comments and her statistics, she defined our situation at the moment very clearly. Obviously, it is a challenge with youth and equipping them with the set of skills and competencies that are needed in those tough times, and even during the journey to become the future leaders. As she mentioned, obviously, resilience, communication, technology, customer service, leadership, and emotional intelligence, they are all key components in the success of this mechanism, which is the relationship between the employer and the employee, and particularly the youth in our, whom are the center of our discussion today. And as we know, there are so many generations that are working among us in the hotel sector, right? And throughout the years, we've been adapting to be able to cater for the demands and the needs of the various generations that are there in terms of communication, personal development programs that are tailor-made for them. Obviously, youngsters nowadays, they are somehow fast-paced, which is an imminent reaction from the technology that has been evolved over the past years. So according to that, for instance, in my industry and in my particular company, we've created fast-track learning and development programs. We've actually increased the use of technology through online training. We focus on the importance of diversity and inclusivity. Work-life balance is somehow key as well for those youngsters, as well as flexibility at work and which components in our business that we can be flexible on, whether when it comes to number of hours or the location of actually finalizing or dealing with this task or another. Training and development, as I mentioned, they've evolved. There is more use of technology, tailor-made programs. And yes, that's, I guess, covering more or less what Jane has just mentioned and supporting what's really actually needed for today's youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tarek. Well, let's hear what the youth have to say about this as well. Laila, you have been employed during COVID-19 pandemic. What struggles have you had to face or have seen youth in your sector facing? And more importantly, what recommendations would you give recruiters and HR professionals in the sector from your point of view?
Okay, I found it challenging to apply for jobs because honestly, a lot of companies were cutting down on their employment rates. A lot of companies have even gone out of business due to harsh economic conditions COVID has brought along, especially that tourism has taken a strong hit. Furthermore, I rarely receive replies from companies after submitting a job application, which quite frankly came with its own wave of disappointment. I felt like hope is nowhere to be seen, and that the hard work I have done over my years of studying has gone into vain. I'm only one story among millions of youth who are still facing the same challenges. I was lucky enough to succeed in facing this challenge, but I think there is a point that employers and recruiters ought to pay attention to, which is that the new generations are unique in their own way. So I really, really hope they can provide support in terms of looking at what we need as current or potential employees to provide high quality service. If you provide culture, diversity activities, and mentorship programs, I do believe it will boost employee satisfaction. And if this satisfaction is maintained, an employee will go above and beyond for you. Okay.
Thank you so much, Laila. Hearing from young people like who have to face the employment challenges is really a very crucial restarting point for everyone. Tarek, speaking of youth, I'm sure that many of the young people watching you in this session find you a great example of a career success. Perhaps this is a good time to tell them more about the beginning of your career as a young man. Have you been born a hotel manager? And how did you start? And how did it take you from one level to another to achieve where you are right now?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Nora. No, certainly not. I haven't been a hotel manager since I was born. I was actually fortunate to have lived, worked, and studied in London, the UK. I've studied at the University of West London, where I had my bachelor's degree with honors in hospitality management. I was fortunate at that time as well to be able to work alongside my studies. So basically, I was working during the day, and so I was studying during the day, and in the afternoons and evenings, I was working. I started my first job in one of the affluent hotels on High Street, Kensington, London, where I used to be a room service waiter. You know, London is a cosmopolitan city, so there are so many nationalities there, be it where I was studying or where I was working. So this was actually a very enriching experience that have built my personality, because I had to deal with people of different backgrounds, and I had to learn the job hands-on rather than the theory only at the university. So day by day or day after day, in my first role as a room service manager, and then followed by a receptionist at the same property, and I actually working a few days being a waiter and another few days being a receptionist, and I was actually meeting some of the guests while serving them in the room, and actually maybe checking them in or out later on, and they would say, well, we've seen you somewhere else. That was a nice thing for me at that time to hear, and I was happy that I'm gaining and learning experience in that respect. Obviously, we all learn by making mistakes. Without making mistakes, the learning curve will not really be there, right? So this is one of the main things that I would advise and encourage youngsters not to be fearful of. You should be making mistakes so that you learn. But what most important is that you really learn. One other thing, you need to be open to people. You need to listen attentively. You need to embrace other person's opinions and respect their cultures and backgrounds, because this is what it is all about in our industry. You know, travel and lodging industry is all about dealing with people of different backgrounds, even if they come from the same country. So being tolerant and being able to listen attentively is really important. I believe those few years in the beginning of my career were the stepping stones for me to start growing up in this field, which is very difficult, particularly in this sector of hotels. You know, hotels are open 24/7, right? And there are always things to do. And that was my real story in the beginning of my career while I'm studying. Then I've started with Hilton over the years until I've reached my current role as general manager. There is one thing that I would like also to add in that respect, which maybe I did not really fully touch on in my speech, that our industry is resilient and will remain resilient because of the people. The people globally, they want to travel, they want to meet other people, they want to create memories, and memories can only happen through traveling. So this is the thing or the fact that would make our business or our industry resilient, and that it would recover from COVID or any other pandemic or disasters that may occur now or in the future. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you very much, Tarek. This is really very inspiring. And thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure this has left a mark with many of our young listeners today. I'll move to you, Jane. You have been an expert on youth skills and how to build them. Let me know your thoughts on what Tarek had said and whatever you would like to share at this point. Yeah, lucky we have the slides back.
Thank you very much. And really interesting to hear both Laila and Tarek's tale of their journey into the travel and tourism industry. And I think that there are many people in our industry that have had interesting journeys. It's remembering we've got over 150 job occupations within our industry, and that's growing as the digital age changes some of our workforce as well. And so the opportunities are vast, those career pathways. So one of the things that I wanted to just sort of share with you now is, well, what does that mean to young people? So we've actually done some research over the last few months in a number of countries, some in Latin America, in Asia, and also in the Middle East and North Africa. And these were some common responses back from youth who are really wanting to consider coming into the tourism and travel industry. And I think, you know, there probably won't be any surprises there, but I think it's something that we have to share with our employers as well. So these are the factors that are going to make a difference to youth really thinking about creating their careers with us. They want a better work-life balance. So that's something the industry has to really think about as it grows back. They want to be paid according to the right rates. They want to feel valued and to be able to earn a living. And the way of doing that is being able to really show career progression, because we know entry point can quickly, the pay can quickly change as people progress in their career. They also want to continue learning. Learning and development's not just for entry. It's not just what you come in with. It's actually, what can you train me on once I'm in the workplace? And our industry has gone through such a massive change over this last 18 months. And I absolutely agree with Tarek. We are resilient. We do come back, but actually we really do have to accept that learning and development is there for life in our industry. And then I think it's worth employers really thinking about, how do they respond? What's going to be important from the young person's perspective when they enter? And I think these are three really interesting ones. Young people want to be respected. Actually, they are digital natives. They come with new ideas. We can learn a lot from them in the way that they want to travel in the future as well. So common respect. To do that, we need to train our existing staff and employees to really respond to that. They want to be listened to. And I think Tarek said it well, in as much as our customers want to be listened to, but so do our employees. They want to be heard. And again, really no surprise, they want to feel valued and trained and developed. What does that mean? That means that we have to think about short, sharp, easy to deliver learning solutions. And certainly our partnership with EFE in a number of countries, we've been looking at that, from e-learning solutions to providing more modular programs, to providing those entry point programs that assist people into entering into the workplace. But we're going to have to move further with that. We're already seeing in the hospitality industry the use of virtual reality. So we're going to have to really consider what other means and methods we might use going forward that will be really exciting for us, but will also support the learning that we're needing for entry point youth and also our existing workforce.
Thank you very much, Jane. I couldn't agree more. And honestly, EFE is all about this hope and letting young people know that there is still hope despite all the challenges. Honestly, questions have been coming in from the audience since we started talking. So let's take as many as we can of them. So my first question would go to you, Tarek, about hiring the female technicians beneficial. So an anonymous is asking, what challenges did you face with them as female technician, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Thank you very much. Actually, in the beginning, it was a matter of how to settle them in within a male-dominated department, right? So this was the first thing. But we know, or we knew, that ladies, they have a talent that they can do a number of things at the same time, which is more than what a male can do, right? So they have an advantage in that respect. Through training them, they've proven that on the floor with the can-fix roles, where they do a number of hand jobs be it small jobs regarding the carpentry, plumbing, electricity, etc., etc. So they were trained on those, and amazingly, they were doing them quite well. And when they were going on orders, and when they were meeting with our esteemed guests, the guests were very much appreciative of what they are doing and how they are doing it. And this was from a number of guests of different backgrounds, that they haven't seen female technicians in other hotels or other parts of the world. So they were very proud, and we were proud of that. And this what kept them and us going and believing in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tarek, for your informative answer. I have another question for you, Jane, and please allow me to read it from a screen that's beside me. So the question is, starts with a sentence. So the problem is not with entry-level youth, the problem with those intermediate and experienced level who lost their jobs during the pandemic. The question is, do we have any recommendation or tools to assist them finding new jobs? Those are the ones that are intermediate and experienced level.
Yes, and I think I'm going to give the example that we have on the doorstep really in Cairo, because having just opened the Al-Maza Recruitment and Training Centre, which is also an inclusivity centre supporting people with disabilities, that this is a real opportunity. We have an opportunity for people to find out about the different bite-sized, short, modular programs, some of the e-learning that's now available through EFE-Egypt and arts. And so therefore I would really recommend that individuals go onto our website to find out more about that, about arts and what it can offer, because it is about giving people the confidence. And I think Laila said it very well. Actually, what the training did is it enables someone to build their confidence to come back into the industry, and also to recognize where things might have changed and to give them that little bit of additional learning to support them. And I think also we need to think about apprenticeships and internships. And Laila mentioned the importance of mentoring. We've got lots of people in our industry that we work with and arts works with that can provide some of that mentoring. So I think there are lots of different levels that we can support people that have come out of the industry that would be interested in coming back. It's a really, really important question.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jane. Millions of questions. I'm trying to skim through them to ask you. So another question for you, Tarek. How widespread is the travel revival? And in which MENA countries are hotels and others seeing increased demand?
Right. Actually, it's a very interesting question, and it is a very dynamic one at the same time, because, you know, things are evolving and changing by the, we can say maybe by the hour or by the day, and the pace is quite different from one country to the other, depending on how the country is reacting or dealing with the pandemic. But what we can see now globally, that somehow, some way, and I can talk about Egypt in that respect, we are seeing now so many nationalities among our guests staying with us that we haven't seen a few months ago. Right? So this is an indication that things are opening up and that people are traveling once more. I understand that other countries, such as the UAE, is doing well, Saudi as well, some parts of Saudi. I don't have clear figures. What I know as well is that in Asia, and in particularly China, they are doing very well in terms of occupancies. And from our own experience here since the start of the pandemic, we've been progressing very well in terms of business levels, and we are quite optimistic of what to come in the very few months remaining in the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tarek. I'll just take a couple of more questions. One for you, Jane. So the travel sector has always been volatile with ups and downs. What can be done to encourage youth to join this important sector? What the future looks like?
Yes, and I think that's a really, really important point because it's moving and changing every day, and the digitalization of some of our systems and processes, they're changing the roles, some of our hotel systems with automatic check-ins. We're needing people with different skills. So what we have to be is better at sharing what their career opportunities are, what the progression points are, and the variety, because whilst of course we're going to lose some jobs in the industry, we're going to require different jobs with different skills, more technicians, more engineers that will enter an industry they probably hadn't thought they would enter. And so we really have to think about that and not forget that at the moment AI isn't taking over our customer service aspects. So our front service individuals really do have to be absolutely excellent in what they do. And so attitude and behavior, we need to really build the skills of our people within the industry and give them the confidence that they can come in and that we will teach them and we will help them to adapt as the industry evolves in the coming years.
Perfect. Thank you, Jane. I really want to apologize to all the questions because there are tons of them. I have one nice question to you, Laila. So someone is asking you, how did you stay positive during the job hunt?
Okay. I always convince myself that everything is gonna be okay. I applied and reapplied in every company I know. And my advice to every fresh grad, you have to keep positive and never give up. You'll get everything you want.
You just nailed it, Laila. Thank you very much. So I wish we could take more questions. Again, I'm very sorry, but I'm very conscious of time. I would like to ask Tarek and Jane to share one last comment in the context of what we have been discussing today. Just one or two sentences. Tarek.
Actually, what I keep always telling my team here is that we are in this business to take care of our team members and to grow and develop them, right? Because through this, everything would fall in place, whether it's top line revenues, whether it's bottom line generating profits, whether it's the satisfaction of our guests. So it is key in our business where people are serving people that we really take care of our people. And as Jane has put it very well in on a number of occasions, that we need to be adaptable to what the current generation is looking for in terms of trainings, mentorship, coaching, and so on, whilst focusing on the real development and showcasing life examples to our team members to keep them going and keep them motivated and eager to grow. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Tarek. Thank you. Jane, on to you.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's remembering the youth of today are our leaders for the future. And so actually we have to provide them with really clear progression opportunities and that ongoing learning. And I think there's a message really for our employers and our providers out there that we need to work together so that we are continuing to provide those solutions for entry point and also once in the workplace. And I think we're doing that with arts in Egypt, and I'd like to see so much more of that and more employers and providers kind of engaged in that process. So for me, I think just remember the youth are our future leaders.
Yes, they are indeed. Excellent, thank you. Laila, what are your thoughts? Any advice for youth hearing us and how they should start and return to work in the tourism sector?
Okay, from my point of view, if you're considering getting into tourism as a fresh grad, try to have strong spoken and written English. If you have an extra language, it would be perfect. If you want to work in flight ticketing, then make sure you get an Amadeus course or Galileo course. As a beginner, you don't have to take the intermediate, the advanced from the first step. Which, by the way, EFE-Egypt has provided us a couple of rounds to make sure we keep up with their website to know whether they are upcoming ones Generally, tourism is a challenging sector to be a part of during the time of COVID. However, if there is something that would help you to not only find jobs but maintain them within this sector, it's EFE-Egypt's program. You'll get the chance to learn all about business skills, Microsoft Office skills, financial literacy, and business English. It will be the wrap-up. Yes.
Perfect, Laila. I'm going to just make you a success story after what you said.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Laila, Jane, and Tarek, for your thoughts and for taking the time in your busy schedule to contribute to our EFE's impact through this webinar. I would also like to thank all of our donors, partners, who support our mission to empower youth potential in the MENA region through the dignity of employment. I would also like to announce that in collaboration with People's First and under the umbrella of Almaza Recruitment and Training Center, state-of-the-art health and safety module is now available in an e-learning form through EFE's learning management system. Under Arts, EFE will make this module available for young people in the tourism and retail and hospitality sector, free of charge for anyone who would be interested in taking it. It has already been part of our retail training program in 2021, and it will be made widely available for the public in partnership with City Center Almaza. So just to remind everyone that for more social media channels and announcements, check our website, efe.org, for comprehensive information. And finally, my esteemed panelists, thank you again for being here, and for our guests today, thank you for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.